I'm Corbett Wall with USDA Livestock and Grain Market News, here with your weekly feeder and stocker cattle market summary for the week ending May the 18th, where we've got yearling feeder cattle selling steady to $3 higher in a light test. Spotty offerings of calves throughout the country. By spotty I mean just a few in certain weights, and maybe a little heavier runs in other weights. Poorer quality, poorer conditions. The cattle that do have some thinner flesh conditions like the buyer want don't have much quality to go with it. So just real spotty calf offerings, and they were unevenly steady all across the United States this week. And just light receipts. If we get up north of I-70, get up into the northern part of Kansas and on up from there into the Dakotas and Nebraska, Iowa, and even further out west, they just a real abbreviated schedule in these auction markets. Some of them may be having one sale a month, maybe two sales a month, but really only one of them having enough cattle there to really test the market good. And you get further south from there and they're going to have a sale every week unless they can find a holiday or any kind of a excuse not to have a sale. But just not enough cattle there, and not enough of the same kinds of cattle to really fill orders and put loads together. So far for the year, running from January 1st on up to now, nationwide feeder cattle auction receipts are 5.6% lower than last year and 9.2% lower than the 5-year average. So we're just really getting short of feeder cattle numbers right now. And as we get into this time of the year, it always happens, but it seems like it's maybe more so this year, as when you get into the southern plains, the lower Midwest, the southeast, there's just not any of those cattle that'll fit those northern orders. And by northern orders, those of you that don't know, when you get into those northern feedlot areas of Nebraska and Iowa and somewhat into the northern Colorado orders, they just want a better kind of cattle. They want those cattle to be more solid colored, a lot of them preferably black. They want those square made cattle, not much cross in them, and they want them more uniform. And they could get by without it this time of year as we're in the summer months, but that's just what they like. That's what they want. They don't want those plainer cattle to stick out like a sore thumb whenever they get ready to market those cattle fat. But the few cattle that was offered of that top quality up in Valentine, Nebraska, they had a decent little sale there. Had one load of steers that weighed over 800 pounds. They averaged 806 and brought 162 and a quarter. That gives you an idea of where we could be going here. So kind of some bullish signals this week as the market trends on these feeder cattle was steady to higher, even though we didn't have a lot of them and we didn't have a whole lot of quality. Then on Friday, the cattle on feed report comes out, and it is huge bullish. Probably the most, for the way things are, probably the most bullish cattle on feed report that we've seen. Your actual numbers, cattle on feed, as of the 1st of May, come out to be 99.4% of a year ago, compared to the average guess, which was a little bit over 100. But it's significant in that we've gone nearly 2 years of straight reports with year-over-year increases. And finally, we've got less cattle on feed than we had sometime in the last 2 years. But then your other two major numbers were even more bullish than that. Your placements were extremely light at only 85.2. That means almost 15% less cattle placed on feed during April than a year ago, which is extremely light. The average guess, they pulled it way down with some of those analysts being way low there and pulling that guess down, but that guess was still 88.3, so another bullish factor there. And then your marketings, your sales of fat cattle coming out of the feedlots during April was more than a year ago at 100.4, and they had it guessed at 98.6. So just a very, very bullish cattle on feed report. It's going to be very friendly to your feeder cattle market over the next several months, and we don't have a lot of feeder cattle, so those of you that do have some to sell, get ready, because it's going to be demand big time for those cattle. We'd kind of had a standoff in the feedlot trade so far this week. You know, within seconds of that report coming out, Kansas started selling fat cattle $3 higher than a week ago at 123. A lot of the guys passing that. Then immediately after you had the 123 trade, you had bids of 123.50. Guys wanting 124. Then we start seeing a little bit of trade at 23.50 and 124, and some trade in Nebraska at 125, and that's $3 higher also. So huge shot in the arm for the cattleman. What he needs now is for the consumer consumption during the Memorial Day holiday to be large. It's going to be sticker shock for some of these consumers going in to buy their steaks or even hamburgers, especially hamburgers compared to what it normally is, to put on the grill for their get-togethers over the Memorial Day weekend and watch the car race and what have you. But we need good consumption there. We need good weather. We need sunshine in the East Coast on both sides for those guys to get that backyard grill out, invite some people over, and eat beef. If we get that coupled with this cattle on feed report and these tight numbers, we're going to be back online to start breaking records again, you know, before too long. But your regional weighted averages this week in the north central states, an 800 to 900 pound steer this week cost you $145.37 compared to $143.44 last week and $122.98 a year ago this week. In the south central states, down the southern plains, 7 to 8 weight steer cost you $151.36 compared to $149.62 last week and $128.27 a year ago. And down in the southeast, a feeder steer for them, 600 to 700 pound steer, cost you $150.50 compared to $151.42 last week and $124.31 a year ago. That wraps up your markets for this week. Check out our website for more market information at marketnews.usda.gov. From the Regional Market News Office in St. Joe, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.